r/AITA for quitting my friend's MLM the day before her bonus payout? Hashtag chunk 1. The message preview lit up my phone screen at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I almost didn't read it. Asterisk OMG babe, you're such an easy mark, lol. Literally told her the oils help with period cramps and she bought the whole starter kit, loudly crying face, loudly crying face, loudly crying face asterisk. I stared at those words for a long time. Long enough that my screen went dark and I had to tap it again. Long enough that I read them 3 more times, trying to make sense of letters that suddenly felt like they were spelling out a language I'd never learned, even though I'd known these words my entire life. The message wasn't directed at me. That was the thing that made my stomach drop even further. I'd been scrolling through my phone in bed, half watching some show I wasn't really paying attention to, when I accidentally opened the group chat that I shouldn't have been able to see. The one labeled real friends with a little laughing emoji next to it. I don't even know how it happened, my thumb must have slipped while I was switching apps. But there it was, and there she was. My best friend of 23 years. Sarah Chen. Discussing me like I was some kind of idiot. Asterisk wait, did she actually fall for the whole it's an investment in your business pitch? Skull asterisk. That was another voice. Melissa. Melissa, who'd been one of my bridesmaids at my wedding. Melissa, who'd cried on my shoulder when her dad died 2 years ago. Asterisk she totally did. Signed up for the auto ship and everything. These people are so easy. Like literally, just tell them it's for their health or their family or whatever and they'll buy anything. Asterisk. My hand started shaking. Actually shaking, like physically trembling in a way that made me put my phone down on the nightstand because I was afraid I'd drop it. I picked it up again immediately. The conversation continued. Page after page of it. Sarah, my best friend, the girl who'd known me since we were 5 years old, casually discussing how she was manipulating our entire friend group. How she'd specifically recruited people she knew had people-pleasing tendencies. How she'd even mentioned health benefits to Jessica, who was dealing with chronic migraines, knowing it would make her feel like she was doing something proactive. Jessica, who told me last week that she'd spent $347 on her starter kit and first month of auto shipments. I sat there in the dark, because at some point I'd let the screen go black again, and tried to figure out which version of reality I actually lived in. The one where my best friend genuinely cared about me? Or this one, where I was apparently nothing more than a mark in an elaborate scheme to pay for her dream wedding? Because that was the thing that made me read every single message in that chat. Sarah had mentioned it, buried in the middle of a long rant about quarterly targets and commission structures. She'd said, asterisk honestly if I can get just 3 more people at the starter kit level by the end of the month, I'll hit the bonus. Becca said she's probably in, and if I can get her mom plus 1 more person, I'm literally getting a $5,000 bonus that would cover most of my wedding down payment. This company is actually genius for people like me who know how to sell. Asterisk. 3 more people. Becca, that was me. Becca Sullivan, the easy mark who joined this essential oils company called Luminescence 4 months ago because Sarah had asked me to. Just as a personal favor, she'd said. Just to help her reach silver level status. It would mean so much to her, she'd said. And I believed her, because why wouldn't I? She was my best friend. I'd spent $287 on the starter kit. I'd been paying $52 a month for the auto ship ever since. You had to maintain a minimum order to stay active in the company, and Sarah had been very clear about that. Very helpful about explaining how it worked. Very supportive when I'd mentioned a few times that maybe I wasn't really selling very much. Asterisk that's okay, babe. You're building your own timeline. Not everyone's a natural business person like me, and that's fine. Just keep the auto ship going and maybe you'll find your people eventually. Asterisk. I remembered that conversation. I remembered feeling so grateful that she wasn't disappointed in me. That she understood I wasn't a natural like her. What I understood now was that she'd never expected me to sell anything. She just needed me to keep spending money. She needed me to stay active. She needed me to qualify her for bonuses. I pulled up the date. Today was the 28th. Her message about the bonus was dated the 28th. Which meant, I scrolled back through the conversation timestamps, which meant this chat had been going on for weeks. Months, maybe, in terms of the overall plan. The next big payout deadline was the 30th. 2 days away. I did something I'd never done before. I screenshot. Page after page of screenshots, my phone making that little camera shutter sound each time, which felt impossibly loud in the quiet of my bedroom. I kept thinking someone would hear me, even though I lived alone. Even though there was no one to hear anything except the racing of my own heartbeat and the quiet hum of the refrigerator downstairs. When I was done, I sat in the dark and tried to remember the last time Sarah and I had had a real conversation. A real, honest one, where we weren't performing for each other. I couldn't remember. I opened my text thread with her, the normal one, not this nightmare chat I'd accidentally stumbled into, and stared at our recent messages. All the check-ins. All the I miss you, babe, we need to catch up soon messages. All of it suddenly felt like performance art. A carefully constructed fiction. And tomorrow, she would expect me to renew my auto ship order. Tomorrow, the system would try to charge me for another month of essential oils I didn't want and didn't believe in and didn't use. Tomorrow would make it 29 days. 1 day before the bonus deadline. I stared at the Manage My Account button on the Luminescence website. It would take maybe 30 seconds to cancel. To deactivate my membership. To pull the rug out from under the entire plan. 1 day too early. My thumb hovered over the button. It stayed there for a very long time. Hashtag chunk 2. I didn't cancel my membership that night. I told myself it was because it was late. Because I needed to think clearly. Because making a decision at midnight while my hands were shaking and my chest felt like it was caving in was probably not the smartest move I could make. All of those things were true, technically. But the real reason I didn't cancel was because I was still half hoping I'd misunderstood something. That's what I kept doing as I lay awake until 4 a.m., rereading those screenshots on my phone with the brightness turned down low. I was looking for an interpretation that made this okay. Some context where Sarah wasn't actually the person those messages suggested she was. By 5 a.m., I'd stopped looking. By 6 a.m., I'd started a notes app document titled What TO Do and then immediately deleted it, because even looking at those words felt like a betrayal of something, even though I wasn't sure what anymore. I called in sick to work. That was a first. I pride myself on being reliable, on showing up, on being the person people can count on. The irony of that wasn't lost on me as I texted my boss that I had a migraine and wouldn't be able to make it to the office. I wasn't even sure if it was a lie. My head had been pounding since around hour 3 of my sleepless night. My phone buzzed at 8:47 a.m. A text from Sarah. Asterisk, hey babe. Just confirming you're still locked in for the team meeting tomorrow night? It's gonna be so good. We're announcing some new product lines and I have a special surprise for my top recruits, face blowing a kiss asterisk. I stared at that message for so long that my screen went dark again. I had to keep tapping it back to life, like I was trying to resuscitate something that was already dead. She didn't know I knew. That was the thing that kept spinning through my head, making everything feel surreal and dreamlike and too sharp all at once. Sarah had no idea that I'd ever seen that chat. No idea that I was sitting in my living room in my pajamas, not having eaten anything, staring at her text message like it was written in a code I needed to break. I texted back, asterisk, can't make it tomorrow. Not feeling well. Asterisk. It wasn't technically a lie either. I definitely wasn't feeling well. I felt diseased in some fundamental way, like someone had replaced some crucial organ in my body with something broken and toxic. Sarah responded immediately, asterisk, no. The meeting is important. You need to hear about the new compensation structure. And honestly, I think you could really level up if you committed more. Maybe we could set up a training call? Asterisk. Oh my god. She was still doing it. Right now. Even after I'd spent the entire night reading proof of her betrayal, she was still trying to push me deeper into the scheme. Still trying to get me more committed. Still treating me like a mark. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could send her a screenshot. I could send her the entire folder of screenshots. I could tell her exactly what I'd seen and exactly what I thought of her and exactly how many ways I was willing to ruin her over this. I didn't. Instead, I called my mom. This was maybe not the smartest move either, but I was operating on maybe 4 minutes of actual sleep and had spent the last 6 hours in a state of betrayal-induced mania, so my decision-making process was already compromised. Honey, what's wrong? She answered on the second ring. She always knew when something was wrong. Even when I was trying to sound normal, she could hear the fracture in my voice. I told her everything. The whole thing, from the beginning, how Sarah had asked me to join Luminescence, how I'd done it as a favor, how I'd been paying nearly $52 a month for the past 4 months, how I thought it was to help my best friend. And then I told her about the chat. About the easy marks comment. About Jessica and her migraines and her $347 starter kit. About the bonus deadline that was now less than 48 hours away. My mom listened to all of it without interrupting, which was unusual for her. When I finally stopped talking, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Oh, sweetheart, she finally said, and her voice was so sad that I started crying. Actually started sobbing, the kind of crying you do when you've been holding everything in for hours and it all comes out at once. What do I do? I asked her. What do I even do with this information? Well, my mom said carefully, what do you want to do? And that was the question, wasn't it? That was the one that had been keeping me awake. Because here's the thing about discovering that your best friend of 23 years has been deliberately manipulating you. There are approximately 1 million ways you could respond, and every single one of them had consequences I wasn't entirely sure I was ready to face. I could confront Sarah. Tell her I knew what she'd been doing. Give her a chance to explain herself, though I couldn't imagine what explanation would possibly make this better. I could quietly leave the MLM on my own terms, pretend I'd never seen the chat, and try to salvage some version of our friendship based on whatever foundation apparently still existed between us, which, based on the evidence, seemed to be, she liked my money, and I liked being liked by her. I could cancel my membership right now, cost her the bonus, and blow up 23 years of friendship in the process. Or, and this was the option that my brain kept circling back to, I could wait. I could wait until tomorrow night at the meeting. I could show up and see what she was really like when she thought I was still just an easy mark. I could gather more evidence. I could understand the full scope of what she was doing before I decided how much I was willing to destroy. I said slowly to my mom, I need to know exactly how bad this is before I decide what to do about it. Becca, my mom started. I'm going to the meeting tomorrow, I continued, already knowing it was the wrong decision but also knowing I was going to make it anyway. I'm going to act like everything is normal. And then, after I see the full picture of what she's doing, I'll decide. That sounds like punishing yourself, my mom said quietly. She was probably right. But I'd been punishing myself my entire adult life by being the kind of person who would join an MLM just because her best friend asked her to. By being the kind of person who ignored red flags because loyalty felt more important than self-respect. Maybe it was time to stop. I'll be fine, Mom, I told her, which we both knew was a lie. After we hung up, I looked at my phone. Sarah's last message was still sitting there, unanswered. Asterisk, maybe we could set up a training call? Asterisk. I typed out a response, asterisk sure. Let's talk soon. Asterisk. Then I set my phone down and waited for tomorrow to arrive, knowing that whatever happened next, the life I'd had before I accidentally opened that chat was already over. There was no going back now. There was only forward, into whatever came next. Hashtag chunk 3. The next day crawled by like it was moving through molasses. I'd managed to sleep maybe 2 hours after my conversation with my mom, the kind of sleep where you're not really asleep but also not awake, just sort of suspended in this anxious limbo where you're constantly aware of the time and how many hours until the thing you're dreading. I went through the motions of being a functional human. I showered. I ate some toast that tasted like cardboard. I texted my boss that I'd probably be okay to come in tomorrow, knowing full well that I probably wouldn't be. I tried to respond to a work email and ended up staring at my laptop screen for 20 minutes without typing a single word. But mostly, I tried not to think about the meeting. Around 3 p.m., I got a text from Jessica. Asterisk K. Are you coming tonight? Sarah said it's going to be huge and wants all her top recruits there. There's some announcement about new product lines? Asterisk. Top recruits. Right. That's what we were. That's what this had been about the entire time. I stared at the text for a long moment, then made a decision. I called Jessica instead of texting back. Hey, she answered, and she sounded genuinely happy to hear from me. What's up? I almost told her. I was standing in my kitchen, phone pressed against my ear, and every word of the truth was sitting right there on my tongue, ready to come out. I could have warned her. I could have told her to cancel her membership, to get her money back, to run away from Sarah and Luminescence and everything it represented. But I didn't. Because I was still gathering information, remember? I was still going to that meeting to see the full scope of what Sarah was doing. And if I tipped Jessica off now, I'd lose the chance to see how Sarah operated when she thought none of us knew. I'd lose the chance to understand just how calculated all of this was. So instead I lied. Just wanted to check in with you. See how you've been doing. We haven't talked in a while. I know. It's been crazy. I've actually been doing pretty well with my inventory though. Sarah's been helping me a lot. She's really invested in my success, you know? I closed my eyes. Sarah was invested in Jessica's $347 starter kit and her monthly orders and her status as a mark, anyway. That's great, I said, and it was possible I was the worst person in the entire world. I'm definitely going to the meeting tonight. Wouldn't miss it. After I hung up with Jessica, I sat on my couch for a while and just sat. I was thinking about consequences. About how every choice had them. If I went to the meeting and confronted Sarah, I'd destroy the friendship, but at least I'd feel like I was taking a stand. If I quit quietly, I'd lose the money I'd already spent but preserve the possibility of some kind of relationship in the future, even if it was built on a foundation of lies. If I waited until after the meeting, I'd get more information, but I'd also be complicit in Sarah's manipulation for one more night. There was no good option. There was only different kinds of bad. Around 6 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time it was my other friend Marcus. Asterisk Becca. You coming to Sarah's thing tonight? She seems really pumped about it. Fair warning though, I think she's going to try to get me to sign up for some kind of premium membership. She's been texting me about advanced training opportunities. Should I be concerned? Asterisk. My stomach dropped. Marcus. Sweet, skeptical Marcus who sold software for a living and definitely knew his way around a bad business model. Marcus who I'd actually warned about MLMs in general, back when this all started, but I'd framed it as a general PSA and not as a specific warning about Sarah. Come anyway, I typed back. Asterisk, I'll fill you in before the meeting starts. Asterisk. I wasn't going to tell him everything, that still felt too much like a betrayal of Sarah, even though Sarah had definitely betrayed me, but I could maybe steer him away from the premium membership without revealing that I knew what was happening. Could I? Was I even capable of doing the right thing anymore, or had I already compromised myself so thoroughly by deciding to wait that everything I did now was just incremental damage control? By the time 7:45 p.m. rolled around, I was in my car, driving to Sarah's apartment, and I still wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do when I got there. I dressed carefully, nice jeans, a top that said successful without trying too hard, and I'd practiced my fake smile in the mirror until it looked natural enough to fool someone who wasn't paying close attention. Sarah's apartment complex was packed when I arrived. Cars lined the parking lot, and I recognized at least 5 of them as belonging to people I knew from our friend group. Some of them had been recruited recently. Others had been in the Luminescence ecosystem for months. We were like little fish, all swimming around in Sarah's tank, and she was the one who decided how many pellets of food to throw in. I parked and sat in my car for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, breathing through my nose the way my therapist had taught me to do when I was feeling anxious. Then I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app. I created a new document titled Tonight and typed out a simple checklist. See how Sarah operates. Listen to what she tells people. Watch her body language. Figure out if this is calculated or just who she is. Decide what happens after. I saved it and closed the app. When I walked into Sarah's apartment 10 minutes later, she was standing in the center of her living room in this gorgeous white dress, the kind of dress that probably came from an expensive boutique, and she was glowing. Actually glowing. Her hair was perfectly done, her makeup was flawless, and when she saw me, she lit up like I was the one person she'd been waiting for all night. Beckea, she shrieked, rushing over to pull me into a hug. You made it. Oh my god, I'm so glad you're here. I have something special planned for you tonight. You're going to be so excited. I hugged her back because that's what you do when someone hugs you, and I smiled because that's what you do when someone smiles at you, and I hated myself for it. I'm excited to be here, I lied, and watched as my best friend of 23 years pulled away, her eyes already scanning the room for her next mark, her next easy recruit, her next person to convince that they mattered when really all they mattered for was their money. The meeting was about to begin. #Chunk4. The living room had been transformed into something that looked less like Sarah's cozy apartment and more like a boutique hotel conference room. There were folding tables arranged in a semicircle, each one covered with luminescence products arranged in neat pyramids. Essential oil bottles caught the light and threw it back in little refractive sparkles. Diffusers were set up at strategic points, pumping out lavender and eucalyptus into the air. Someone had hung string lights across the ceiling. There was a table at the back laden with wine and charcuterie and these little artisanal chocolates that I'm sure cost more per ounce than gold. About 30 people were milling around, and I recognized maybe 18 of them. The others must have been recruits from Sarah's recruits, people who'd been pulled into the ecosystem through a chain of people who'd been pulled in through Sarah. I watched a woman in her 50s talking to a girl who couldn't have been more than 22, and the younger girl was nodding along enthusiastically while the older woman gestured toward one of the product displays. Becca. Jessica appeared at my elbow, practically vibrating with excitement. Oh my god, look at this turnout. Sarah's been planning this for weeks. She said tonight's announcement is going to change everything for us. Change everything how? I asked carefully. Jessica's eyes went wide. I don't know yet, she's keeping it secret. But she said that anyone who's been at a certain level for 3 months is eligible for something. She said the bonus structure is about to shift in a way that rewards loyalty. She literally used that word. Loyalty. Jessica grabbed my hand. Becca, I think something big is happening. I think Sarah's figured out how to make this actually work. I felt something twist in my chest, and it wasn't sympathy. It was anger, cold and clarifying. Because Jessica was genuinely hopeful. Jessica, who'd spent thousands of dollars on products she couldn't move, who'd been mocked in private messages by the person who was now squeezing her hand like they were sisters, Jessica actually believed that something good was about to happen. That's great, I managed. Sarah clinked a champagne glass with a fork, and the crowd slowly turned toward her. She'd positioned herself on a small raised platform near the fireplace, a platform I was willing to bet she'd never had before and would probably hide after tonight, because the whole point was to seem relatable while also being subtly elevated above everyone else. Welcome, everyone. Her voice carried across the room with practiced ease. I am so thrilled to see all of you here tonight. I want you to know that this, she gestured around the room, this community, you all, mean everything to me. Because at the end of the day, luminescence isn't about products. It's about people. It's about building something together. I watched Marcus from across the room. He'd arrived while I was parking, and he had the expression of someone watching a nature documentary unfold, interested, observant, slightly detached. He caught my eye and raised his eyebrows in a silent question. Tonight, I want to share some exciting news, Sarah continued. As many of you know, I've been working incredibly hard to hit a certain milestone. And I'm pleased to announce that thanks to the support of all of you, my amazing team, my loyal recruits, my friends, she paused, and I watched her eyes flicker across the room, cataloging people, I'm about to hit diamond status. The room erupted in applause. Jessica grabbed my arm and squeezed it so hard I thought my circulation might cut off. Around us, people were cheering, genuinely excited for Sarah's achievement. The diamond status comes with some incredible benefits, Sarah said, her smile spreading across her face like honey. And one of those benefits is that I can now bring on premier consultants. People who will have access to exclusive training materials, exclusive products, and a direct line to corporate for custom orders. This was it. This was the thing. Marcus was right to be concerned. I've already selected a few people for this opportunity, Sarah said, and she turned her gaze directly toward me. And I'm hoping they'll seriously consider taking this next step with me. The way everyone's eyes turned to me made me feel like I was underwater. Like the pressure around me was increasing and I was trying very hard not to drown. Becca's been such an important part of my success, Sarah said, and her voice had taken on this saccharine quality that made my skin crawl. I know she's been quiet about her personal sales, but I see what she's doing behind the scenes. I see her potential. And I think she's ready to step into her power. Step into her power. Jesus Christ. So Becca, Sarah said, and she was looking at me with those bright eyes, that perfect smile, what do you say? Are you ready to join the Premier Consultant Program? Every single person in the room was looking at me now. Jessica was practically vibrating. Marcus's expression had shifted into something that looked like concern. An older woman I didn't recognize had her phone out, probably filming, probably for some kind of community-building video that would be shared internally. I had a choice. I could say yes, and play along, and preserve the information-gathering mission I'd supposedly been on. I could smile and nod and let Sarah think she'd reeled me in for another level of the pyramid. I could find out exactly how much money she stood to make from moving me up a tier. Or I could tell the truth right now. I could say, actually, Sarah, I have some questions about your compensation structure. I have some questions about the messages you've been sending to Jessica about easy marks. I have some questions about whether any of this is actually legal. I opened my mouth. Marcus took a step forward, not aggressively, just present. Like he was ready to back me up if I needed him to. Sarah's smile faltered for just a second. Just a fraction. Long enough for me to see that she knew. On some level, she absolutely knew that I knew. And she was afraid. You know what? I heard myself say. I need to think about it. It's a big decision, and I want to make sure I'm not rushing into anything. Sarah's smile snapped back into place. Of course. I totally understand. But Becca, I do want to talk to you before you leave tonight. There's something I need to tell you. Something important. Sure, I said, and I meant it. I'd like that. But as I stepped back into the crowd, letting the conversation wash over me, I was making a different kind of decision. Not in my mind. In my gut. In the part of me that had learned tonight that Sarah wasn't just greedy, she was calculating. She wasn't just manipulative, she was actively afraid of being found out. The meeting continued around me, but I was already thinking about consequences. About what I was going to do when I left this apartment. About whether I could actually go through with it. About what happened next. #Chunk 5. The rest of the event passed in this strange, dissociated blur. I moved through the room like I was watching myself from above, accepting a glass of champagne I didn't drink, nodding along to conversations I wasn't really hearing, making small talk with people whose names I'd probably forget by tomorrow. Someone tried to sell me on a skincare line expansion, and I smiled and said I'd think about it. Someone else showed me their dashboard, apparently that's what they called the back-end system where you could track your sales and bonuses, and I made appropriately impressed noises while internally noting the ridiculously complex structure designed to make it look like people were making more money than they actually were. Jessica clung to me for a good portion of the evening, talking a mile a minute about what the Premier Consultant Program might mean for her, whether she might be eligible eventually, how Sarah said that loyalty would be rewarded. Her hope was painful to watch. It was like seeing someone genuinely believe in something beautiful right before it shattered. Around 9 o'clock, Sarah caught my arm as I was heading toward the bathroom. Hey, she said, pulling me into a corner near the kitchen. I really wanted to talk to you before you left. Come to the bedroom for a second? I followed her, hyper-aware of how isolated we'd suddenly become. The bedroom was dark except for the light spilling in from the hallway, and Sarah closed the door behind us with a soft click. I know you're hesitant, she said without preamble, and I get it. I really do. But Becca, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about money for me. This is about my future. David and I want to get married next spring. Small wedding, nothing crazy, but I've been dreaming about it since we got engaged. And the truth is, I can't afford it on a salary and my job. But if I hit diamond before the end of the month. She trailed off, letting me fill in the blanks. The wedding. Of course. The dream wedding that would require money. The dream wedding that she apparently believed an MLM would fund. How much are we talking? I asked quietly. 15,000, she said. For a really beautiful venue and everything. It's not a lot, really, compared to what some people spend, but for us it's everything. And the bonus structure, if I can get enough active recruits to diamond status by the end of the month, I hit a bonus pool. A really generous one. How many recruits? I asked. Just one more, she said. Her eyes were pleading. Just one more active recruit at the right level, and I'm in. And Becca, if you move to Premier Consultant, that's it. That's all I need. I felt it then, the weight of what I was considering. This wasn't just about Sarah's manipulation or my anger about being mocked. This was about the fact that Sarah had built her dreams on the backs of people she didn't respect. And she was asking me to be one more person to sacrifice my money and integrity so she could have her fairy tale wedding. I need to think about it, I repeated, and I meant it in a completely different way than I had meant it on the platform. Of course, Sarah said, and she squeezed my hand. I hope you'll choose to support me. I hope you'll remember what we mean to each other. That line hit different now. Because it sounded less like an expression of friendship and more like manipulation. It sounded like a threat dressed up in the language of love. I drove home in a daze, my phone buzzing with texts from Jessica asking if I wanted to grab coffee tomorrow, with Marcus sending me a simple, we need to talk, with even Sarah herself sending me a heart emoji and a message saying thinking of you. I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling and thought about Chunk 5 of the decision tree I'd apparently been building all along. Chunk 1, join the MLM to support Sarah. Chunk 2, realize it's a scam but stay quiet. Chunk 3, find the messages proving Sarah's disdain. Chunk 4, get confronted with the Premier Consultant offer. Chunk 5, decide what happens next. And the problem was that every choice had consequences. If I said yes to the Premier Consultant program, I was complicit. I was actively helping Sarah manipulate more people. I was letting her build her wedding on a foundation of lies and false hope. I was betraying everyone in that room who genuinely believed in her. But if I said no, if I did what I was now contemplating, I was ending a friendship that had existed my entire adult life. I was costing Sarah her wedding money. I was choosing self-righteous anger over loyalty. Except that wasn't fair either, was it? Because loyalty to Sarah had to mean loyalty to the truth. And the truth was that she was lying. Around 3 a.m., I did something I probably shouldn't have. I went back through my phone and read all the messages again. The ones where Sarah called Jessica an easy mark. The ones where she bragged about how people were falling for it. The ones where she calculated exactly how much commission she'd make off each person in the friend group. There was one message that stuck with me. It was from Sarah to someone in her upline named Patricia. Sarah had written, I built a really solid base here. These people trust me because they know me, and that makes them less likely to question things. It's honestly the easiest money I've ever made. The easiest money she'd ever made. That was what I was to her. Not a friend. Not a sister figure. An easy mark. A source of income built on the foundation of a friendship that had meant everything to me. By the time the sun came up, I'd made my decision. Not in an angry or impulsive way. I'd made it with the cold clarity of someone who had finally seen the situation for what it actually was. I pulled out my laptop. I found the MLM's website. I navigated to the cancellation page. The system asked me for my reasons for leaving. I stared at the drop-down menu for a long time. Not making enough money. No longer interested. Found a better opportunity. I selected other and typed a message in the comment box. This company is a pyramid scheme that preys on vulnerable people. My upline manipulates people she claims to love. If you care about ethics, you would shut this down. It wouldn't matter. The company wouldn't care. But I needed to say it anyway. Then I looked at the calendar on my desktop. Sarah's deadline was tomorrow. The day she would qualify for diamond status and the wedding bonus. If I submitted my cancellation tonight, she wouldn't make it. My cursor hovered over the submit button. I thought about Jessica's hopeful face. I thought about Sarah's pleading eyes in the bedroom. I thought about the 15-year friendship that was about to implode. And I clicked submit. #chunk6. The confirmation email arrived at 3:47 a.m. I watched the little notification pop up on my screen with a sick feeling in my stomach. My MLM membership was officially canceled, effective immediately. The email was cheerful, almost mockingly so, thanking me for my time with the company and offering me a discount code to rejoin, as if I would ever, with a little smiley face emoticon at the end. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel relieved. I felt hollowed out. I closed the laptop and lay back down, knowing sleep wouldn't come. I'd crossed the Rubicon. There was no taking this back. Sarah would wake up tomorrow morning expecting to hit her diamond status. She'd probably already planned how she was going to tell David, already mentally spent that $15,000 on her dream wedding. And instead, she was going to find out that I'd sabotaged her. That I'd had the power to give her what she wanted and had chosen, deliberately and cold-bloodedly, to take it away. The thing was, I'd expected to feel something more definitive. I'd imagined that the moment I hit submit, I'd feel a surge of righteousness, or at least a clean sense of having drawn a line. Instead, I just felt tired and a little bit sick. My phone started buzzing around 6 a.m. I almost didn't look at it, but the pattern of notifications was too insistent to ignore. Multiple texts, coming in rapid succession. I pulled the phone toward me with dread coiling in my chest. Sarah *, good morning. Just wanted to check in before the big day. So excited. 2 hearts. Sarah *, did you think any more about the Premier Consultant thing? No pressure, just curious. Sarah *, Becca? You awake? Jessica *, OMG, are you up? Sarah's checking her dashboard numbers this morning. I have a good feeling about today. Marcus *, we really do need to talk. Can you call me? I didn't respond to any of them. I couldn't. What could I possibly say? At 8:30 a.m., my phone rang. It was Sarah. I stared at her contact photo, the two of us at a beach trip 3 years ago, both of us laughing at something David had said, both of us golden and happy and, I now understood, completely different people than we thought we were. I let it go to voicemail. She called again at 8:45 a.m. And again at 9 a.m. By 9:15 a.m., she was texting. Not the cheerful morning messages anymore. Sarah asterisk, why aren't you picking up? Sarah asterisk, Becca, seriously, call me back. Sarah asterisk, I'm checking my numbers and something seems wrong. Sarah asterisk, did you cancel? That last one was in all caps, and I could feel the shift in her, the moment she realized what I'd done. The moment she checked her dashboard and saw that my name was no longer there, that my account status had changed to inactive, that the counts had dropped and she'd fallen just short of her threshold. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt like I'd just dropped a bomb. Sarah asterisk, Becca. Answer your phone. Sarah asterisk, what the hell did you do? Sarah asterisk, you promised. You said you were thinking about it. You said you'd support me. Sarah asterisk, call me. I turned my phone to silent. Then I got out of bed and made coffee I didn't want to drink, standing in my kitchen and staring out the window at my quiet, normal neighborhood where people had normal jobs and normal friendships that didn't involve MLM schemes or calculated betrayals. My doorbell rang at 10:47 a.m. I wasn't expecting it, and for a moment, I froze. I looked through the peephole and saw Sarah standing on my porch in the same clothes she'd worn to the party last night, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, her face blotchy. She looked like she'd been crying. I opened the door. What the fuck, Becca, she said. Not hello. Not can we talk? Just that, raw and aching. What the hell did you do? Come in, I said, and she followed me inside, pacing in my living room like a caged animal. I don't understand, she said, and her voice cracked. I don't understand why you would do this. We're best friends. We're supposed to be there for each other. And you looked me in the eye last night and you let me think that maybe you were considering it, and then you go behind my back and... I read your messages, I said quietly. Sarah stopped pacing. What? The messages between you and Patricia. The ones where you called Jessica an easy mark. The ones where you talked about how easy it was to manipulate people who trust you because you've known them for years. The ones where you calculated exactly how much commission you'd make off each person in this friend group. I watched the color drain out of her face. Becca, those messages, they were taken out of context. There is no context where these people trust me because they know me, and that makes them less likely to question things is okay, I said. There is no context where treating your best friends like profit margins is acceptable. You don't understand how this industry works, Sarah said, and there was a note of desperation in her voice now. Everyone in MLM talks like that. It's just the language. It doesn't mean. It means exactly what it says, I interrupted. It means you knew this was a scam and you recruited us anyway. It means you used our friendship as a sales tool. It means the wedding that you were so heartbroken about affording? You were planning to build it on money that came directly from lying to people you claimed to love. I needed that bonus, Sarah said, and tears were streaming down her face now. David and I have been engaged for 2 years. Do you know what it's like to want something so badly and have no way to afford it? Do you know what it's like to feel like a failure because you can't give your fiancé the wedding of her dreams? I do, I said. But not at the expense of everyone else. Not like this. One more day, she whispered. You could have just let me have one more day. No, I said. I couldn't. She left without another word, and I watched her walk to her car and sit in the driver's seat for a long time, her hands gripping the steering wheel, before she finally pulled out of my driveway. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number that I realized, after a moment, had to be from Patricia, Sarah's upline. I don't know what you said to your friend, but you caused a lot of damage here. Sarah was days away from a major promotion. I hope you're proud of yourself. I wasn't proud. But I wasn't sorry either. #Chunk7. The next 72 hours were some of the worst of my life, and not in the way I'd anticipated. By Monday morning, the fallout had spread beyond Sarah like a virus through our friend group. Jessica showed up at my office during my lunch break, her perfectly contoured face blotchy and her usual chipper energy replaced by something jagged and accusatory. How could you do that to her? She demanded, not bothering with a greeting. We were standing in the break room, and I could feel Janet from accounting pretending very hard not to listen while she microwaved her leftover pasta. Jessica, She's devastated. David is devastated. Do you have any idea what you took from them? Do you have any idea what Sarah did to you? I said quietly, trying not to have this conversation in front of an audience. Did she tell you about the messages? About how she called you an easy mark? Jessica's face flushed. That's different. That's just how people talk in business. That's exactly what Sarah said. You betrayed her, Jessica continued, her voice rising. You were supposed to be her best friend. And instead, you sabotaged her for what, some kind of moral high ground? I felt something crystallize inside me, cold and sharp. Did Patricia tell you to come here? Is she organizing damage control? Jessica's silence was answer enough. Get out, I said. And don't come back. But it wasn't that simple, because Jessica wasn't the only one. By Tuesday, I'd received at least 15 messages from people in our extended friend group, most of them variations on the same theme. I was selfish. I was jealous. I was bitter about my own life and had taken it out on Sarah. Some of them I barely knew. The MLM had apparently done an impressive job of cementing group loyalty around its leaders. One message came from Robert, who'd been with our friend group since college. I bought a starter kit for $500, he wrote. I haven't made a single sale, but I was willing to keep going because I thought Sarah believed in me. Now I find out she was just laughing at me the whole time, and you're the one who had to tell me? What kind of friend keeps that from people? I started to type a response, then deleted it. What could I say? I'd made a choice, and now everyone was living with the consequences of it. On Wednesday, David texted me. Just my name, asking if I had time to meet. I almost said no, but something made me agree. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our offices, and he looked worse than Sarah had, like he hadn't slept, like he'd aged 10 years in 3 days. I'm not here to yell at you, he said, before I could even sit down. I'm here to ask you a question, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay, I said carefully. Did you do this to hurt Sarah, or did you do this because you thought you were helping? It was a good question. A question I'd been asking myself repeatedly over the past 72 hours. And the honest answer was that it was somewhere in between, and that distinction mattered, but also that I wasn't sure it made any difference to the outcome. I did it because I couldn't live with myself if I helped her achieve something through deception, I said finally. And yes, maybe some of it was also to hurt her. Maybe I wanted her to face consequences. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm capable of being objective about my own motivations anymore. David stared into his coffee for a long moment. She wants to call off the wedding, he said quietly. My stomach dropped. What? She says she's a terrible person. She says she doesn't deserve me or a wedding or anything good. She's spiraling, Becca. She barely leaves bed. I'm genuinely worried about her. David, I stopped, because what was I going to say? That it wasn't my responsibility? That she brought this on herself? All of those things were true, but they sounded hollow and cruel in the face of what he was telling me. I'm not asking you to fix it, he continued. I'm asking if maybe you could consider that sometimes the right thing and the thing that helps people are two different things. After he left, I sat in that coffee shop for another hour, staring at my untouched coffee and trying very hard not to spiral into my own guilt. The problem was that everyone wanted me to be either a hero or a villain. Sarah's supporters wanted me to be a villain, selfish, petty, jealous of her success. My own guilty conscience wanted me to be a hero, righteous, principled, standing up for truth against deception. But the reality was messier and more complicated than either narrative. I'd been right about the MLM being a scam. I'd been right about Sarah manipulating her friends. But I'd also been deliberately cruel. I'd had the power to walk away and feel good about my own moral superiority, but instead I'd chosen to blow up a 15-year friendship. And the worst part was that I'd done it in a way that made it impossible for anyone to argue that I wasn't wrong without seeming like they were defending MLM predation. I'd been smart about it. I'd been strategic. I'd been cold-blooded. And now I was sitting in a coffee shop, wondering if being right was worth being alone. My phone buzzed. It was my mom. Somehow, the news had made it to her, probably through some mutual acquaintance on Facebook. She wanted to know if the terrible thing she'd heard about was true. She wanted to know if I was okay. She wanted to know if I wanted to come home for a while. I almost said yes. But instead, I thanked her and said I was fine, that it would all blow over eventually, that these things always do. I wasn't sure I believed that anymore. #Chunk8. 6 months later, I was sitting in my apartment on a Saturday morning when my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I almost didn't answer it. Standing on my porch was Sarah, and she looked different. Her hair was shorter, lighter, with less product in it. She wasn't wearing any makeup, and her clothes were just normal, jeans and a sweater, nothing with a brand logo carefully displayed. She looked like herself from 10 years ago, before all of this. Hi, she said quietly. Hi, I replied, my hand still on the door handle. Can I come in? I should have said no. By all reasonable measures, I should have told her to leave and closed the door and gone back to my coffee. But instead, I stepped aside. We sat on opposite ends of my couch, the way you sit when you're not sure if you're still friends. Sarah picked at a loose thread on her jeans for a long moment before she started talking. I've been in therapy for 4 months, she said. David found me a really good one. She's been helping me understand a lot of things. I waited. I joined that MLM because I was desperate to feel successful at something, Sarah continued. My job wasn't fulfilling. David and I were struggling financially. My parents have always been the overachievers, and I felt like I was wasting my life. And then Patricia showed up with this promise that I could be something, that I could provide, that I could be the kind of person who makes things happen instead of just letting things happen to me. She finally looked up at me. But the thing is, once I got a little bit of traction, it stopped being about my own insecurity and started being about needing everyone else to validate my choices. And when people questioned the business model, instead of listening to them, I just dismissed them. I mocked them. I lied to them. And I told myself it was necessary. That it was business. That it wasn't personal. It was personal, I said, not unkindly. I know, Sarah replied. I know that now. She took a shaky breath. What you did, canceling your membership the way you did, it was cruel. And it was deliberate. And I'm not going to pretend it didn't hurt like hell. But it also woke me up in a way that nothing else would have. Because as long as everyone was still playing along, I could pretend it was all fine. I could pretend I wasn't becoming someone I didn't recognize. I didn't do it to help you, I said. I need to be honest about that. I did it partially to hurt you. I know, Sarah said again. And I think I needed to be hurt. I think I needed to face what I'd done. The silence that followed wasn't comfortable, but it was something. It was honest. David and I didn't call off the wedding, Sarah continued. We postponed it. We're getting married next spring instead, at the courthouse, with just immediate family. It's going to cost maybe $2,000 total. And you know what? It's going to be perfect. Because it's about us, not about some external measure of success or status. I didn't know what to say to that. I also contacted everyone in the group, Sarah said. Not to try to get them back or to justify what I did. Just to acknowledge that I'd manipulated them. That I'd lied. I gave them information about the MLM's actual income disclosure statements. I told them about the messages Patricia had been sending me encouraging me to be more aggressive. I told them the truth. Did they respond? I asked. Some of them, Sarah said. Jessica quit the MLM, but she's also kind of furious with me, which is fair. Robert is considering filing a complaint with the FTC. David's brother withdrew his money and is trying to figure out if he has grounds for a refund. And a few people just said okay and moved on. And Patricia? Sarah's expression hardened slightly. Patricia's upline apparently got wind of what I was doing and decided to distance herself from the whole situation. Turns out Patricia was the scapegoat when things went wrong. Shocking, I know. Despite everything, I felt a small smile tug at my mouth. I'm not here to ask you to forgive me, Sarah said, and now her voice was steadier, more certain. I'm not here to tell you that we're going to go back to being best friends and everything is fine. I don't think we can do that. I think too much has happened. There's been too much damage. My chest tightened. But I'm here to tell you that you were right. About the MLM, about my behavior, about all of it. You were right, and you paid a price for being right. You lost your best friend, you faced a bunch of harassment, you dealt with people being angry at you for something that wasn't your fault. And I'm sorry. I'm genuinely, deeply sorry for putting you in that position. Sarah. Let me finish, she said gently. I'm also here to tell you that I think what you did was wrong. I think you deliberately chose to hurt me when you could have just left quietly. I think you wanted me to suffer, and I did suffer, and maybe some part of you is satisfied by that, and I can't make that okay. But I can acknowledge that I gave you reasons to want to hurt me. Tears were streaming down her face now, but her voice remained steady. So I guess what I'm asking is, not for forgiveness. I don't think I deserve that. I'm asking if maybe, eventually, after enough time has passed and enough damage has been repaired, if maybe we could find some way to acknowledge what we meant to each other without trying to pretend the bad parts didn't happen. I sat with that for a long moment. I don't know if I can do that right now, I said honestly. I don't know if I'm ready. I know, Sarah said. That's why I'm not asking you to decide now. I'm just asking you to keep the door open. She stood up, and I walked her to the door. Neither of us hugged. Neither of us made promises. But as she was leaving, I said, thank you. For coming. For saying all of that. Thank you for answering the door, Sarah replied. After she left, I sat on my porch for a long time, watching the neighborhood wake up around me. I thought about friendship and betrayal, about the ways we hurt each other and the ways we tried to repair that hurt. I thought about how being right doesn't always feel good, and how redemption isn't always simple or tidy. I didn't know if Sarah and I would ever really be friends again. But I knew that something had shifted. The door wasn't closed. It wasn't quite open either, but it was no longer locked. And somehow, that felt like enough.